ready, Brian.
Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where startup innovation meets business and technology. And now, please give a warm welcome to your host, Brian Sparks!
I love it. And you did that so well with Tabello
With
all in your face.
Tabello over here. Hi, Tabello.
For those of you who are listening, we have an extra guest in the studio. We have Tabello, which is a
Labradoodle.
A Labradoodle. So he's being extra friendly, so we'll have extra energy in the room.
When this gets up onto YouTube, everyone will get a visual of Tabello. Tabello apparently loves to be over here in the booth with
stealing
me.
Stealing the show. All right, so welcome to Silicon Valley Impact. I'm your host, Brian Sparks. The purpose of this show is to have honest conversations about what it takes to build great businesses and communities so that you can make an impact within your own. Okay, so first off, Brian, I'm proud of myself. I read that without my glasses, so maybe I won't be reading in the future.
Oh, great. That means maybe you have it memorized.
There might be something there.
Yeah, and then next we have to get you to deliver it with some feeling. I want you to emote. I want to feel the words.
Like the intro. I need to pick up from you. Yeah, okay, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so today's show is going to be fun. We've got three great individuals in the house. We have Mercedes, Nouf, and Paul. They're going to be doing their intro in a minute. But Mercedes, let's say hi to you first. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
So you hail from Founder Institute. So we're going to hear a little bit more about Founder Institute. We also have Nouf. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. And we have Paul.
How you doing?
Good to see you all. So let's do a quick little intro so that we can let our audience know a little bit about your background. So Mercedes, we'll start with you. Go ahead and kick it off. Give us about a 30 seconds to 60-second intro about your claim to fame.
Oh.
No pressure.
I exited my first company around 22, and then I went and worked for Cisco, Oracle, NEC Corporation, and then I flipped into the startups again when I was back in London, essentially because I just wanted more friends.
Nice. And now you're currently at
Founder Institute,
which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. We have Nouf in the house. You and I met last week at a Startup Grind event. You were the winner, did a great job. Give our audience a little insight about what you're working on.
Sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Plastus, Biotech. We make completely 100% biodegradable bioplastic called polyhydroxyalkanoates, or PHA. I'm a bioprocess engineer and a bioengineer. I did my undergrad in medical technology, so I knew this material as a biomaterial. So this startup brought this material from the biomedical application to the consumer market. So now we sell the resin for plastic manufacturing companies and 3D filaments.
Nice. And now
hopefully toys to dogs.
Yeah,
soon.
and now you're getting the love. I love it. Yeah, so Tabello will be making his rounds. Brian?
I just want to emphasize 100% biodegradable.
100% biodegradable.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Great company. And Paul, give a little intro to our audience about what you're working on.
Yeah, I run Pitchit, and what we're building are AI agents that can plug into sales teams. We kind of naturally found a nice niche that has a ton of leads every day and really struggles for humans to get on top, qualify those leads. And so it kind of fell on our lap, but the biggest dealer of T-Mobile products was the first one to prove that this is a needed product. And so raised some funding with that case study, and now we're just taking it to market.
Nice. And we'll get a little insight on what that is, what the customer experience like. And you've had to be resilient in those raises, so you have some insight about that experience as well. So we'll tap into that. But Mercedes, let's start with you right now. So you and I had a conversation about a month ago. Loved your energy. We were talking about Founder Institute, but I'm just now learning you started out with your own company. Tell us about what got you into startup, 22 years old. What was the idea? What was the passion? What was the pull?
Well, I was 19.
19, okay.
When it started. Basically, I took advantage of an opportunity that fell into my lap.
And you were in the UK at the time?
No.
No, you were here in the
US.
States. Okay.
So I was in college. I worked for an events team at Starbucks, and they were growing so fast that one day they were like, "You need to go work in a store." I'm like, "Whoa, I'm not store material." So I went to all the clients that they had, which was a minimum of 10,000 people, and just said, hey, can I take over your contracts? And they were like, yeah.
And then the idea was born. And how long did you work on that company? What were some of your early insights into that?
Well, I took it more than coffee. I started adding alcohol to it, which was really funny because
spice it up. Yeah.
at 19, you can't actually drink alcohol, but you can actually go buy it wholesale, I discovered.
Okay.
And then I took it to music venues. And we ended up having like 6 or 7 locations per event. And they were just making a ton of money, and it was a lot of fun. And then I just got into a spat with my partner and just said, we've got to end this and sell it.
Mm-hmm. And so you had to exit, sold it, and were you hooked in the startup scene at that point and pivoted to something else? But it sounds like you went to Cisco and kind of cleared your system of the startup world a little bit.
I backpacked Europe for a year and a half.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's the way to go. Nice. So let's kind of leap forward, and then we'll work in reverse. Tell us a little bit about the Founder Institute, what it is, and what is your role there, and kind of we'll work from the small idea to the big idea.
So we are an accelerator that starts at idea to launch. So you come in, you have an idea, you haven't validated it, we help you launch. Or alternatively, you've been working on the idea for a while, but you're struggling. And with that struggle, it's like, what's going wrong? Like, what are the learnings that need to happen to like take you to funding? Mm-hmm. So it's an incubator for about 4 months. And each week is a different kind of like the day in the life of like a CFO or a salesperson, whatever the case is. But it's geared to get you funding, get you traction, and get you launched.
For the very early stage companies.
Correct.
And so it's just in Silicon Valley, or are you all over the U.S.?
We're in 300 cities worldwide.
Okay. All right. And so tell us a little bit about, have you been there since the beginning? How long have you been involved? And how can other startups get involved?
Well, to get involved, just go to fi.co/join. We have numerous locations around the world. So, I mean, I always advise people to start like where they live, but you can join Silicon Valley remotely. It's at 6 p.m. on the evening, like one night a week. Mm-hmm. And we do have people do that, strangely enough. Like they join from like Europe and the UAE, which it's pretty incredible that they're so committed to like just meeting Silicon Valley mentors and learning from Silicon Valley. What was your other question? Sorry, I forgot.
So you've been what's your role there? And kind of, we were talking about, is it just in Silicon Valley? Because you actually cover two general areas. You're Silicon Valley, and you cover also, was it the UK as well?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, so you're just looking at Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I ran London for about 5 years. And then over the pandemic, I ended up moving to Silicon Valley and running this team. As a result, I also run like Atlanta, sometimes New York, Austin. So wherever like they need help, they roll into Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. But I'm the director locally. We do run remote first, but it's also a hybrid model. So we have lots of in-person events.
So take us through that process. Right now, you're going through a screening process to get ready for the next cohort. How big is the cohort? You just said that someone can apply just by going to the website. And then what is kind of that journey like? And then what are kind of their expectations on the back end?
So we give an entrepreneurial personality test for acceptance, and that determines like how good of a founder you are. We only care if you're a good founder, because if you're not a good founder, then it doesn't matter what company you create. Mm-hmm. You're just going to be a bad founder.
So you start with founder fit, pretty much.
Yeah, founder fit.
What does that assessment look like? I mean, if I can just double click on that and we'll come back to the bigger process. What does that look like?
I mean, it has kind of your standard personality questions, like how do you react in this particular situation? And, how open are you? Kind of organizational, like how you react. And then we also have like puzzles and things like that to determine like what is your intelligence. And I mean, it depends. There's data around the world that's very different. So in London, my founders were very organized. They were not super open. Whereas in Silicon Valley, they're very open. They're huge dreamers, but they have less organizational traits.
Interesting. Okay, so you start with the personality test, and is that a part of the application process?
It is.
Okay, so they fill out the form, and then you take a look at it. What is it that you're looking for in terms of the company and the personality?
I don't know all the secrets to the personality test. All I know is it's 85% correct. So those founders that are accepted, they were accepted because they're a good founder. So we're just looking at their entrepreneurial DNA. Like,
Okay.
do they have what it takes to be an entrepreneur?
And give me, like, from a high level, some character qualities that you identified as like the top 3 that are common that come through there and are successful.
Intelligence is definitely one of them. How open they are. So can they listen to feedback?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also kind of have a score for like, are they combative?
Oh, interesting.
And
I'm sorry, is combative a positive or a negative?
if they're super combative, no, that's not
Yeah.
a positive. And that's because they can't take advice, right? They can't listen to their customer. They can't listen to their investor. And you know who those people are, like the red flags. Like the second,
It's like dating, right? It's like you figure out, okay,
If
can
you
I
watch
have
like a recorded meeting with them, in the first meeting, you'll know they're
Yeah.
not listening.
How many applications do you have?
at Silicon Valley alone, like at the end of like 2 months, we'll probably have 1,500.
1,500, and you're choosing how many out of that?
I don't know. I don't keep track of those scores because I'm not on the admissions team, but I do see like who is like a good fit and who I think I should call because I reach out to them personally. So I think right now I reached out to like 100.
You've reached out to 100, and those will then be whittled down to like the top 10, or no, you'll take those 100?
We are willing to take those 100.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they get accepted in, they get that highly anticipated phone call from Mercedes. And what is kind of that process?
Because Silicon Valley is remote first, we have homework that they can start on. They can start watching videos. We have small tasks that they can get ready before they really like enter and start the cohort. Like my cohort is going to be on October 2nd. So we have time. But they have lots of curriculum that they can look at and resources. And we just recently rewrote everything to include like AI type capabilities. And so eventually I wanted to, start testing their idea, like who they should talk to, who they should interview,
So
and
you
kind of
do-
get them going.
You get them going with introductions to have conversations with people in Silicon Valley.
Of course.
And you guys have a big network of mentors. So do you introduce them to the mentors, or is it somebody outside of the Founder Institute?
Both. I mean, it depends on the company, right? So I'm talking to a company right now that they have a humanoid.
So you're tailoring it to them individually. Wow.
Well, not always.
Not always.
But I mean, if it's something I'm super interested in or I know a lot about, like I could reach out to like Aaron Bali from Udemy, which was one of the companies that went through the Founder Institute and sold for $1 billion. He had an education online program. He now runs Carbon Health. So like, people that have a company that might be geared for carbon health, I would reach out to him. But I also know what he's interested in, right? Like he loves sustainable building. He's involved in healthcare. He was involved in like education online. So that's, if a founder is worthwhile and actually has like put in the work, they're getting the traction. Like that's a great introduction for them to have.
Traction. So let's look at that for a second. What does good traction look like in the early stages? Because as you were saying earlier, before we started, recording, you were a feeder for other accelerators. So you go early. If a very early stage company is trying to articulate their traction in a pitch, how do they do that?
Well, I think you should just learn from the examples. Look at Superhuman. They had 200,000 people on their waiting list. And basically it's one question, like, do you want your email cleaned up? And is this something you're willing to pay for?
So that could be gathering information, data. It can be engagement, wait list. It could be a number of things.
Theirs was a wait list, right? And they didn't have an MVP. But if you're a product company, then you should probably have the product so people can see it and they know that they want to buy it. But you can validate it as far as like the interest level and then take it to the next step. And I think it just really depends on what it is. Like if it's a company that's like mental health, you're going to have like clients and probably MVP and traction, like a lot of traction. If it's something in space, like we don't expect you to have traction in space. We just expect you to have the right team, expertise in it, and then like you can go out for funding because we do have a space program as well.
So is it traction over a long period of time that's more attractive, or is it velocity in a short period of time where there's momentum?
Velocity in a short period of time.
Okay. And so the cohort will last, you said, what, 4 weeks? How long?
No,
is it?
4 months.
4 months. So early stages, you start connecting them to mentors, people within your network. What is the experience then from that point moving forward?
A lot of them drop out, and they should, right? They discover they don't love their idea. They discover that they're not going to grow it to 125 people. They discover that people actually don't like their idea.
So despite the intelligence, despite traction, despite these indicators, there's still those who just go, I realize that this isn't going to stick, or I don't have what it takes.
There's definitely that, or it's just too hard, right? Like, you know, you have a family, you have like things going on. Like, how are you going to dedicate like 25 to 30 hours a week trying to create like a side business until it's ready to launch? And depending on people's financial structures, not everyone can just like drop from their corporate job and go into a startup.
Right. So all things that people should be considering. Now, Nouf and Paul, I saw you both through that first portion of that conversation, shaking your heads a lot. Nouf, I saw you when it came to identifying the person. You saw that as important. What resonated with you? Because you were like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, actually, I've done a lot of these accelerator programs. Usually what I ask about in the beginning is, when is the demo day? How many investors usually show up as a startup? Like, these are the things I care about. Is there any funding? Will you take equity from me if you offer funding? How many stages? I've done a similar 6 months accelerator program called Taqaddam from KAUST. And it's like the Y Combinator of the Middle East. They're like the best. Everyone tries to go there. You get $140,000
If you just make it through.
Yeah, but it's very intense. It's really, really challenging.
So the personality assessment is valuable because you're going to be challenged. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and you have to have traction. You have to sell it no matter what. Even if you're a biotech company and it takes you years to bring the product. But when you graduate, they still work with you. They put you on all these big newspapers, or like Los Echos from France. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's like the New York Times of Paris.
I thought you were going to say Silicon Valley Impact.
Like, this is just one example. It's really cool. And you learn a lot, like how to use all these AI tools to help your company. Like, if you're after 100 customers, how you can do it in just 5 days. You know, like, it's really you learn a lot. It takes a lot of your time, but it's worth it. So I admire these programs a lot.
It sounds like these good programs, like what you're with Mercedes, with the Founders Institute. Is it Founder or Founders? I want to make sure. Founder Institute. It sounds like if you're going to be deploying all these resources in these, these great individuals who are going to pour into you to be successful, you want to make sure that someone has it. And it's clear that you have to do these assessments and kind of put them through the ringer to see if they cut it. Paul, you were shaking your head as Mercedes was talking. What was kind of top of mind for you as you were hearing that gauntlet experience?
Yeah. So what reminded me of was the plug and play funnel and the Alchemist Accelerator funnel.
And those are the
ones that I went through. And so it was 1% makes it out with funding from like the top of funnel of all the applications. And so what that means is, I don't know what it is, 5-6% for Alchemist and Plug and Play is what their acceptance rate is, but they know that by demo day, only about 4 people will actually still be active, and the rest are kind of zombies and too scared to admit that they're out, or they've already quit. And so during that 6-month process, the first thing I saw, we took a meeting with this guy named Ash Rust, who was probably the most just no nonsense. Here's the reality of where you guys are at. He came and said, y'all need to call all your friends and family because those are the only people you're going to get funding from. Demo day is not going to come and hand a VC firm who signs a check. And if you're coming into Alchemist expecting that demo day is going to lead to a big $2 million check, you have the wrong idea. You're probably going to raise $100K from friends and family. And I specifically remember this girl in our group started crying and she said, I don't want to ask my friends and family that. And then I said, dude, I already did and already got the money for my friends and family. What are you waiting for? Go and get that money now. And so you could immediately see people self-electing and filtering themselves out, because that is the very first 300K I got was from people that I had to call from my network and just raise 10K one at a time.
And Mercedes, do you see that? Oh, it's almost like you can see it in their eyes. You call it the zombie effect, or they're checked out. Can you almost see it as that's the reality of how difficult this is starts to set in?
Yeah, I think they get tapped into this like one scenario that they've heard about in the news.
Yes.
Like Rabbit 1 or R1, whatever they call it. They raised like 30
the
million.
little thing that goes on your shirt.
No, the
everything.
little red thing.
Oh, okay.
That was highlighted at CES and has been a complete flop.
I remember that in the press release too. Yeah.
So, but they hear like, oh, well, these like teenage like founders were able to raise like 30 million. Like, why can't I?
Yes.
Off my idea.
We heard that, and then we heard, why did Paul get the money, but I'm not getting the money? And that's what Ash in the same breath said. This is what's going to happen. The people who do this right away are going to get the money, and then you're going to kind of half ASS it, and then you're going to get mad that it doesn't work, and you're going to come to me and start saying, why does it work for him and not me? And then you're going to quit. And this is what happens. Exactly. Wow. It plays out like that.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's denial. It's denial of reality.
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because you almost have to like be so laser focused on where you want to go that you need denial to kind of block out all that internal sabotaging and challenges and be resourceful. But at the same time, it can eat you alive and drive you out.
It's good and bad.
It's good and
right?
bad. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like I always think about this company that I know of. It was 3 convicts who started it basically in jail for the commissary. And if you had told me...
This makes good radio, by the way. Go ahead, go for it.
If you told me that 3 convicts could start a company and then resell back into the federal system or into the state system, I would tell you that you were absolutely crazy.
That is crazy.
Because, I mean, they have to have federal contracts, right? And so somehow, like, they managed it. And
while inside, or were they out?
Probably after, right?
Well, they started it inside, right?
Okay.
Or they started the concept, and they got like the wardens and the guards to invest in their company.
What?
When they got on the outside.
Yeah.
And I mean, these guys were like, they have a lot of charisma. Like they could like sell poo to somebody.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay, so they figured it out.
They figured it out. But I mean, even while they were in jail, like they were able to get a car that they could go to every day and drive to a site to work on like a construction site. And they got girlfriends while they were there. And like, that's just how genius they were.
Brian, we got to get these guys on the show. Figure out how they did this. Okay,
right. Go ahead. Are they out now? Can they come into the studio?
This is resourcefulness at the next level.
Yeah. So they are absolutely out now. They sold their company. I think it might have been 25 million.
That's
and they
great.
sold it to, I think the phone, like basically the one phone company for jail systems. But they did things like they redid the commissary accounts where you could order online, and then they went into like the calendar problems. And they were like, hey, like everybody here has like a wife and a girlfriend, but you only are allowed 1 visit. But like, what if we charge $20 for the second visit? And
oh, so they turned it into a profit center.
They turned it into a profit center for the jails, and they loved it because then there wasn't fighting between the girlfriend and the wife, like on the line going around the jail trying to get in. And they didn't have the line because they had scheduled
did the inmate
visits.
get to decide who paid that? Because if it shows up on your credit card statement that the girlfriend was visiting, isn't that going to create a problem?
Interesting. So, okay, again, we're talking about the founder fit, the character of the CEO, the founder. You're in this 4-month program. They're starting to weed themselves out. They're starting to see the reality of this. The denial sets in for better, for worse, whatever it may be. What is kind of the next phase once they get through the gauntlet of, I mean, it never stops, right, Paul? I mean, it kind of...
It's pretty much just your life.
That's your life now. You're choosing this.
Stop. It just started, and then you hung on or you quit.
Yeah.
And
so,
you have to take it to the next level.
And so what does the next level from the Founder Institute look like in that second month, second week, whatever that next phase is?
Like when they graduate?
Not when they graduate, but they're going through, they're meeting these mentors, they're getting these resources. Are you educating them? Are you putting them in class? Are you giving them assignments? What does it kind of look like?
So every week they meet with like 3 to 4 mentors, and those mentors give a presentation from their perspective, right? So like maybe how they grew mint.com or, the subject matter expertise, whether it's like development, sales, marketing, customer interviews. And then they take those learnings, they do homework associated with the learnings, and then they come back the next week.
So these great not only have the character, but they have the charisma and communication skills to share their ideas at the level of authority. Like they know their stuff.
Yeah, they know their stuff, or at least that's the goal. And then everything at the Founder Institute's graded. So we pitch every week. You get feedback on your pitches. And it's a score from basically 1 to 5. We don't give 3s because 3's on the fence. And basically like 1 is like dog food. And 5 is like, I'm ready to like write a check now or, tap card, whatever the case is, and give you money. And that's how they realize like where they're fitting, like how clear was their presentation, how, relatable it is. Like, do they have the key metrics that you need in a 1 sentence pitch or even a 1 minute to 3 to 5?
So what I'm really hearing, and then Paul, I'll kind of kick it over to you, is a lot of these individuals that come in with great ideas, they're in a silo. I mean, they wouldn't come up with a great idea if they didn't have intelligence within that specific area of expertise. But from the leadership perspective, from the communication perspective, from the constantly being graded and how well you're engaging with your market, you're really busting apart those silos and forcing them to think beyond their area of expertise. Am I reading that right?
Yes. And it's the founders that start arguing.
Tell me more about that.
I had a female founder this past semester, and she blew up at every mentor that couldn't understand her idea. And I'm like, I don't even understand it.
Is that common though?
It's you. It's not them. It's you. And then she was like, no, it's because I'm female. I'm like, no, it's not that.
It's
like
communication.
It's you.
Yeah, it's you. It's you. And so how do you address that? I'm going to come back to that. So I'm going to ask you, how do you address that when you just hit the wall with the founder and they're not getting it? It's them. How do you break through that? But Paul, you had something on the tip of your tongue earlier. You were saying you want to chime.
I was going to ask about it, just a specific use case. So a lot of the things that I see is we raised our funding, we announced it. And so all of a sudden my friends who were at this ideation phase came and they said, I want to get into Y Combinator, but I don't have a co-founder, so it's not even worth applying. Do you guys get a lot of solo founders that are at that moment and they're like an electron just waiting to attract a neutron, or trying to like find a way to get the raw materials where they could get into an accelerator that they know has a pretty strict policy on having 2 founders?
We get a lot of solo founders, but I don't know if that's the reason.
Okay.
Because when you go to Y Combinator, you have a team, you have validation, but we're before that, right? And so we're a feeder for YC. I mean, like some of the top YC companies, we're also top Founder Institute companies. Same with Techstars. Like we have agreements with them where, for instance, I know in Toronto, we have a ton of FI founders that go through FI and then they go to Techstars. And there's founders that need education, more education. Technically, you should be able to get through FI and that should be all that you need. But you know those people, like they continue on with like PhDs and more stuff because they love education.
Well, let me go back to that question I was asking before about more education. You come across this founder, they've squeaked through the system, not being detected as someone who is coachable, but now they've hit that wall, right? And they're saying, it's not me, it's you. It's because of this. You don't like my face, whatever it may be. How do you then kind of stay with them so they can see beyond the wall that they're hitting?
I try to spin their pitch and re-articulate like what's going on. And if they don't get it, they don't get it. I mean, again, like we're data centric. So like you have a responsibility to hit a certain number. And if you're not hitting that number, you get kicked out of the program, or we give you like a epic sprint to fix the issue. And people who do epic sprints, usually they have a light bulb go off. But if they don't, like, goodbye.
All right, I love this. Brian, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian, and I don't have the answer to that right this second.
So while you're finding that, I'm okay.
Yeah,
so
you got a few minutes before we're going to go to break.
Okay, go to break. So let's kind of leap now to, we're getting closer to the end of the program. They want to be fundable. They want to give a great pitch. They have an ask. When they get to the end of the program, what are some of the indicators throughout the journey that demonstrate, okay, they've made some gains. They're now, we feel that they're fundable. And what are some of those characteristics that you can identify?
Are they still passionate, right? And how much traction do they have? I mean, those two...
Within the time that they were with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
How frequently do you find that they're not passionate anymore? Like they've just been beat down? Is that pretty much it? Like their enthusiasm and joy has just been like stripped out of them?
Oh, no, like we don't tend to let that happen. You know, that's just kind of something like if they don't have the passion for it, then they're not going to work on this for 10 years.
And maybe the passion was lost because they started to realize that the product wasn't as viable as they originally thought.
Or they don't like the pivot that the market is like saying,
forcing
hey,
them to take.
Yeah. How often, and I'm going to ask both of you this, Nouf and Paul, how often do you in that early stage see companies pivot, Mercedes?
Like 90+%.
90%. Okay, I want that to sink into our audience of founders who are listening. It's to be expected, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I mean, even corporations are pivoting.
But
right?
is it because, okay, so here's the thing where I want you to make a distinction for our audience. Is it because they can't stop innovating? Because being creative, right, can be very like, ooh, I got another idea. And they start to boil the ocean. Is it because they can't stop innovating, or is it because the market has given feedback, or a little bit of both?
The market's changing, right? Like when we look at the pandemic, every 6 months there was like a new iteration of like how people bought things, like what they wanted, like what they saw as like being important. And then now with AI, like that's changing the landscape in probably a more dramatic fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, both of you, Nouf and Paul, I heard you audibly go, yeah. How many times, Nouf, and I'll start with you, how many times have you pivoted since you launched this?
Yeah, a lot. Because when you do customer discovery, market validation, you listen to your customers, everything changes. And you have to be flexible. You have to be a good listener, but also you have to select. You can't just say yes to everyone who's giving an advice, even if it's like your most favorite mentor. You know, so absolutely. If you don't pivot, then you're not doing the right thing.
I like that. And then I have a question about the innovation piece. But Paul, what about you? When have you kind of made that pivot and re-innovated your idea?
I made pivots at like the worst time. We pivoted the day of demo day at Alchemist, and so I had to change my whole website.
I love it.
The whole pitch deck, and it's because we just had been talking to investors offline about companies they had backed in that space that we were in.
Yeah.
And they told us all the pitfalls, and I just thought, yeah, that's not something that I think is going to be viable. And so I had to look at what the product had at the time, and it wasn't excellent. It was a super MVP. And so we pivoted to a position that we knew it would work for them. And then I had to pivot again once the product actually got completed to what I wanted it to be. And so we pivoted, I think, 3 times in 2023 alone.
Oh, wow. And so I want to throw this question out to all of you. When does a founder in an early stage say to themselves, that's enough? Like, I can't keep rethinking this over and over again, and they commit.
Like quitting?
No, not quitting. So if I'm going to make a better water bottle, and I'm thinking, okay, I have this idea, but it keeps evolving, because I'm getting feedback from over here, I'm getting opinions from over here, I'm rethinking this, and it just keeps becoming something new. When do you draw the line? You tell yourself and or others, no, I'm not doing that. Paul, it sounded like there was almost a moment there for you, and you reconsidered it.
Yeah. Ours was when the largest dealer of T-Mobile came to us and said, I'll pay you 6 figures for your MVP, and we know it's not done. And I thought, whoa, if you guys are willing to pay that for a product that I can't sell to this other market for free, this must be a huge problem. This is my space. This is enough.
So
there's enough people here.
Moment,
I can get to 10 million in revenue without leaving this niche. You can't find any other solutions. You're willing to pay 6 figures for it. It's not even done yet. I don't need to pivot anymore. This is what I'm doing. That was for us when I said we're done pivoting. And we told everybody else in our customer advisory board, great. Love that you want to use Pitchit, but we're kind of moving away from the space. And there's some other people that can do this. Here's their names. And so we just effectively, I guess you could say, you fire them, but it wasn't that big of a deal because we were so early on.
Yeah.
They weren't that convinced in the product anyways. Right. So
yeah,
that's for me, that's when we said we're done pivoting.
Okay. Nouf, you have
Yeah, I mean, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love space. My product can be the first product in space. So I always want to bring it to space, or like to focus on toys, and everyone in my team like, no, let's just focus on the pellets, the resin. It's not sexy, but that's what we should do. That's where people are going to buy in tons. That's where we should focus. But I always feel like, what if like we do that too? So
it's a constant struggle, right? There's this internal stress test.
Because you see opportunities and you're passionate about them as well, you know?
Yeah.
But also, as he said, like customers, you need to have traction in the beginning. You need to show that people need your product. You're fulfilling demand. So you have to focus, you know, like you have to be very focused.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, not to state the obvious, but you really need to be hyper aware of how the market is reacting to what you're trotting out. And if you're not getting it, then you've got to do something. So Mercedes, as you kind of start to look at companies that are fundable, and we're looking at this traction, this momentum, are these companies that come to you looking to do too much, and you have to suggest to them, hey, you need to scale this down a little bit?
Probably one of my favorite phrases is one thing and one thing well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when you're doing like 5 different things, that means you need 5 different sales teams, like 5 different like channels or acquisitions. It's just too much, right? If you do one thing and one thing well.
Put that on a t-shirt. One thing and one thing well, with Mercedes at the bottom. I love that. All right, Brian, when we come back, we're going to have a couple more questions for Mercedes about fundability. What is kind of the next step for your cohort? And then we're going to step into Nouf's world as well as Paul's world, and we'll take a quick break.
Perfect.
All right, we're back, and we're here with Mercedes. We're here with Paul as well as Nouf. We're going to get to Paul and Nouf in a minute. But Mercedes, before we kind of break away from focusing on what you're doing with Founder Institute, let's talk about a little bit more about fundability, and the investments that Founder Institute makes, as well as you are your personal investor as well. What is our audience's takeaway in terms of this is what I need to get to? You talked a little bit about traction. You talked about leadership. What other things that a founder could sink their teeth in their mind around as in terms of being fundable?
Is it really solving a problem? Or do you have a company that, I don't know, it's like Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it really solving a problem for us? No. Like, I'm sure that the investors for Twitter have like done well, or maybe they haven't, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have never invested in something like that. Like, I tended, when I looked at my portfolio around the pandemic, because I was just like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? Like all these companies are going to go out of business. And I realized I was safe. Right? Because I had invested in kind of like utility type things, communications, education, and healthcare related things. And those are things I'm all subject matter experts on.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also things that we use every day. And so when we think about like the pandemic and like what's really important, what, you know, the investments that continue to go up in value are things that we touch every day.
So I have often heard that the best founders obsess on the problem, not their solution. I mean, you've got to have a passion for the solution, but they obsess on the problem. Is that what I'm hearing you saying? Is like what is it? One product? Say it again. One. What was the T-shirt? See, I put it on
one thing.
Do one thing well.
One thing well.
But it was better than that somehow. It was one thing done really well.
It's supposed to be in a T-shirt.
I'll roll the tape back in a little bit.
It's recorded.
It's recorded.
Look at it.
So do one thing and one thing well.
One thing and one thing well, but that one thing is solving a pain point, and you saw that wasn't going away. And so when you're seeing all these cohorts coming through you,
like a real problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
what's a real problem? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I mean, I think people are like zoomed out, right? So like, how do you make video equipment that's a little bit more entertaining and, you know, allows for like large communications?
Okay.
I think that's, like I said, Zoom is kind of like, it's a nice skinny, lightweight thing, but really it doesn't have a lot of context to it, and it could be a lot better.
Yeah.
Right. You could get people more engaged, right, for the long-term meetings. Zoom, I think people are only about 70% engaged, but like, how could you crank that up as remote work is becoming like so popular? The plastic problem. Like, I hate plastic. I think it's just disgusting. We have so much like recyclable things that we're never going to recycle it. Only like 4% of the plastic that we put into recycling containers gets actually recycled, and maybe 9% at the highest. So when we look at like Path or Liquid Death, like, I think they actually solved a problem. And I think people are like, hey, I don't really care for plastic. I'm willing to buy Liquid Death. I'm willing to buy like a Path water bottle. That's such a simple thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's a water bottle.
I like it. Okay.
So, I mean, different problems, like sustainability is like key right now. With the European Union, they just like address like a new law, and I have companies that just like started popping.
I thought that was a perfect segue. No, go ahead.
That is a good segue.
Perfect segue. And then we'll segue to Paul. Go ahead and tap into that. What brought you into your particular market? What was your interest? What was that aha moment where you go, there's a problem I want?
Absolutely. I mean, but she mentioned Liquid Death. I love them so much.
We are not a sponsor for Liquid Death.
But we might be willing to be.
Have you seen their bottles and their campaigns? They're super creative. You know, like you can socialize and you can like just drink water. You don't have to drink, you know. It's really cool. Everything they're doing is innovative. It's really different. But what we're doing is we're making identical plastic to what you know today, but it's called Plastus. So we envision a future where people are holding plastic, but you would ask them, is this plastic or Plastus? So our plastic is different. It's made naturally inside the microbial cells. So it's the actual fat. So when you accidentally leave it in soil or in the ocean, it will 100% disappear and biodegrade. You don't have to worry about the end of life cost. Like, you don't have to send it to special industrial processing facilities, like the other plastic labeled as compostable. So we really see so much potential to disrupt the whole $400 billion plastic market.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. First of all, you said it's made from the fat cells. Where are those coming from? A. And B, I would imagine there's a massive industry that's extremely well funded that doesn't want you to succeed. And I wanted to hear a little bit about that.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah. So it's just the polyhydroxyalkanoates is the fat inside the microbial cells.
Which microbial cells?
You can use anything. Like, there are more than 300 bacterial cells, different kind of host organism that produce this plastic inside their body. So it's up to you how you ferment it.
Do you have like some sort of matrix kind of silos filled with people who don't know they're there contributing fat cells to your cause? Did I just go way off the sci-fi deep end?
Are you thinking LA and plastic surgery?
You're just getting the discard from plastic surgery centers?
That'll show up in her P&Ls. You'll see this huge operating expense of like operating these massive funnels of human beings in a simulation. Where's this expense going?
Paul's with me on this.
Section X. We're not going over there today.
Yeah, but we actually grow these cells inside bioreactors. So we extract it from the microbial cells. So, and the coolest thing about it is that we use organic waste to actually feed the fermentation process. So, and even when we make our final composition, we use also waste to use it as fillers with our raw material to produce it. Like, if you see our 3D filaments we mix, we get coffee from coffee places. We get we're experimenting with the algae from the ocean. So
basically, when I can just put bring my compost bin down to your office.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so where are you all with that? Do you have customers at this point? Where are you in this growth period?
Yeah, so we have a pilot facility in Berkeley. We want people to come and visit, buy products. We're going to a big competition in London actually, on September 6th for the Hult Prize. We won the U.S. finals in Boston, and we're representing UC Berkeley. So
Nice.
we have multiple clients right now. We're trying to sell as much. So we're B2B, but right now we're selling to everyone, like B2C, just to have so much traction for the competition. Because if we win that one, we will get $1 million in funding. We already raised about $1 million, so we will have enough money to build a proper production facility, like to produce 100 ton.
Now, were you there? So I know when a lot of companies are started within institutions, they pick up the torch from a previous class, a professor. Are you kind of picking up the ball that has been, in play for a while, or is this something that you kind of hatched and are now deploying yourself?
Oh, like the whole idea?
Yeah.
There are about 8 established companies in the world. We all know each other by face, by name. We're like a cult. We meet once every year. When I was working with different companies who were trying to create this fossil-based plastic, but it had enzymes they should activate when you put them in soil, so they should but I tried the biodegradability test with them for 9 months. It didn't work. So I knew, coming from a medical background, there's a product that's called PHA. It's just so expensive. If I can find a way to bring it to market at an affordable cost and sell it at the same cost as plastic, then so that's how I started the idea. But right now, if you look at other competitors in the world, none of them. I really believe that ours is the best, because we run a continuous fermentation. They have to shut down their production. They have so much downtime. We solve the contamination problem. We came up with a very unorthodox way to make it. Most people follow the book and they make it the same way PhD students do it.
So let me kind of back. You're the CEO of the company.
Yes.
What does the next 6 months look like for you?
Yeah, hopefully, if we get this funding, we'll go to the city. There's a facility called AIC, American Industrial Center. They have proper electricity, because I don't want to even begin to tell you stories about electricity and equipment. And then we will get. Do you want me to tell you what kind of equipment I'm getting?
Yeah, really quick.
Industrial, very a spray dryer, disc stack centrifuge, retrofit, fit it.
It's like Christmas. It's all coming in, right? It's like
we're gonna
won't fit under the tree.
Are these things the size of warehouses, or are they the size of washing machines?
No, it's not about the size. It's continuous, so we can actually, but also the. It's not something you can have in a lab, or a small pilot facility. And we can produce our 100,000 ton.
I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole here. This is so fascinating.
It's a black hole, not a rabbit hole.
All of us are just it is. Well, I saw you two locked in, go ahead, Mercedes, you had something.
How long does it take to biodegrade?
Oh, so if you put it in a microbial rich environment like the soil or the ocean, it should biodegrade in about 3 months. But it has a good shelf life of more than 5 years if you have it in your office.
Interesting.
And is there any then anything left over? What's the byproduct of once it's biodegraded?
If you throw a banana peel in soil, it will release more methane than our plastic. So it's really.
This is big.
This is so exciting, right?
Yeah,
because everybody hates plastic, and there's a massive floating plastic thing in the ocean that's bigger than Texas, and everybody's concerned, and we've all got these microplastics in our bodies now, and it's just a disaster.
That's
true. This is incredibly thrilling.
A worth of 1 credit card of plastic a week.
Wow.
Oh, delicious. I do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did we answer the other question about this massive industry that might be against you succeeding? Did we get there? I didn't hear it.
So far, believe it or not, they're trying to sponsor these kind of activities, because that will make them actually sound like they're reducing their carbon footprint. They're trying to do something. But we're actually trying to use the carbon capture and utilization units that some of them have, because bacteria can feed on anything. You have bacteria that feed on carbon dioxide. You don't have to give them sugar or
So
oil.
there's a partnership developing here.
So
yeah.
that's my gas fermentation is the future. So my ultimate goal is, instead of having them re-inject the carbon dioxide back to the ground, we can just inject it to our bioreactors.
God, that's so cool.
Come on.
That's so cool.
I mean,
All
It's
right.
like she's got the woman who
perfect-
has all the answers is sitting in our studio right now.
No, go ahead, Mercedes. And
And
then
this is a perfect opportunity for licensing, right? So with like the EU, they created a law last year that's like you have to reduce your you have to increase your sustainable footprint.
Yeah.
And like literally, if I was like Nestle,
Yeah.
you know, doing like plastic bottles, I would reach out to you and license your product and be like, hey, I can file that on my taxes because that's what the EU wants.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Again, we could just continue to talk more and more about this, but Paul, I want to bring you in on this conversation.
About microplastics.
So what are your thoughts about,
How are you going to sell that?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Paul, how are you going to save the planet?
Yeah, mine's not going to contribute to that. That's
So,
for sure.
so
It's
Paul,
not.
real quick, tell us a little bit more about your company, where you're at, what stage you're in. Tell our audience what you got up your sleeve.
Yeah. Okay. So we raised seed funding. We came out of Alchemist Accelerator. Some really good investors, Silicon Road Ventures out of Atlanta and Gray Ventures out of Atlanta. They've got a lot of experience in telecom. They were the big investors in this round, and then friends and family and some angels, right? That are pretty notable. But what we're working on is to try to just make salespeople more efficient in the AI world, right? So a lot of these teams that we've plugged into really fast, like T-Mobile dealers and Verizon dealers and people in telematics, they have this massive organization that purchases or advertises to get huge quantities of leads from consumers. And so there's this point of view of the consumer who wants to buy a cell phone or a Wi-Fi product, and then a point of view of T-Mobile who would love to sell that to them. But historically, you had to come into a store because there's so much knowledge transfer on what's your phone, who's the dealer, plug it in, we'll switch it out, bring your government IDs, what's your credit score, let's set up auto pay. There were all of these really kind of private conversations that had to happen. But COVID hit and they had to really ingest a lot of like virtualization of this. And it was a total disaster for a lot of them. They had to learn how to get leads from something other than a Super Bowl ad. So they were all flooding Facebook and Instagram, and they were getting 1,500, 2,000 leads a day from people. And what they came to us was this vision of, we already have all these leads, but they want to direct message us on Instagram and somehow have a phone show up tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we have no clue how to make this happen for them. We'd love it, but like our team's all out of Pakistan. They have all these dialers. So they're getting all these leads. They just want to dial the heck out of you at any hour of the day. And their solution has been, let's offshore. Manual labor is the only solution to this. And so if we need 50 cooks in the kitchen, but we can't afford them to be in the US, let's go to Pakistan or the Philippines or Nicaragua, and let's get a call center. And there's just been tremendous fraud. So those companies have taken over, stolen identities of Americans. They process payments for T-Mobile. They sell it back to T-Mobile, and then they basically disappear. And so tremendous fraud has occurred. Human labor can't solve this. I mean, you don't want to, I mean, do you want to comment on an ad on Facebook and then get a phone call at 10 p.m. and like have it take 45 minutes to buy this phone?
Yeah, I'm tired of that happening.
Yeah, I hate it when that. So what actually happens though is they call you probably the next day at noon and you totally forget you even filled out that form. And if you don't answer, they'll call you 6 more times, and then eventually you'll mark them as spam, and now every call shows up as spam. That's just the reality of how it's done today. And so AI is the technological shift that makes it so maybe offshoring is no longer the solution here. So we plug in, you tell us where to pull this lead from. There's 7,000 channels we integrate with. We take that lead, we ask you as our customer, what are the 6 or 7 questions that you would ask to Brian to sell him this phone? Our AI will message him on that channel where he came from, and we'll get those questions answered, and then we'll ask if there's a time someone could call him where he'd actually pick up the phone and do the more private stuff, like what's your credit score, what's your social security number. And so we'll hand it off to the human in the loop at the time when you'd be willing to actually have that conversation. So that cuts down a tremendous amount of the grunt work and spamming that they do to you. And it crushed it. I mean, these results were incredible. T-Mobile was getting a hold of 7% of the leads.
And this is one of your biggest first customers.
Yeah, biggest dealer
early
of
adopters,
T-Mobile in the United States. They own like 300 shops, right? So they were getting 2,000 leads a day. They could only reach 7% of those people over the phone. After using Pitchit, they got a hold of 25%. That is a huge increase for them. It made the cost per sale totally profitable, scalable. They started increasing ad spend. And so now we're just taking this to market. So, if this dealer of T-Mobile is doing it, why can't we go after the next 9? Why wouldn't Verizon Wireless want this? Why wouldn't people in telematics and home services want this? And, we've seen repeatedly that they have the same problems.
Go ahead, Mercedes.
Do you do the KYC?
Yeah, so this has been the big thing that comes up is know your customer and then check out opt-in, right? They already have really good solutions for that. And so there is a software company that has come into this space that basically ingests those leads and makes sure that they're passing all of the opt-in laws and they're on the do not call list. And that's when they send it over to Pitchit, is after that.
So it won't get flagged.
What won't get flagged? The AI agents?
Yeah.
Ours won't get in trouble because we come in after they've done that filter. And so
Great.
we sync with that platform.
I love this. And again, what's on the horizon for you is just great possibilities. So we got about 60 seconds left. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, so Pitchit.ai is the best place, or just find me on LinkedIn, Paul Kleen, Kleen, spelled like Kleenex. But look, what's on the horizon is simple, right? I mean, it's unstoppable at this point. Any phone or Wi-Fi product that you buy is probably going to be talking to Pitchit by this time next year at some point in the sales process. That's what our goal is. We want everybody buying phones to talk to our agent.
Nouf, how can people connect with you?
They can either find me on LinkedIn, Nouf Alhazmi, or on Google Map, find the facility and come visit Plastus and
Just come
Berkeley.
see me. Oh, that's so
And
sweet.
buy the product, help us win.
I love it. And Mercedes, how can people connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best.
LinkedIn is the best.
And
Okay.
Also, the third Wednesday, I host something in Redwood City
Oh, nice.
at a place called The Hub. So around 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Tonight. Well,
No, it's the third
it's-
Wednesday. This is not the third Wednesday.
Okay, every third Wednesday they can connect with you.
And I'm sorry, what is the event?
It changes.
Oh.
Like last event was Microsoft AI and having a discussion around generative AI and where that's going.
Perfect.
And sometimes it's grants, sometimes it's funding.
Is that a ticketed event?
It's free.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you can find it on Meetup and Eventbrite.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Brian, we're doing good we're
We're gonna wrap.
on a wrap. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Super interesting. That's a wrap for us. I want to thank you all for listening to Silicon Valley Impact. You can join us here every Tuesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Silicon Valley Impact. And you can connect with me, Brian, at siliconvalleyimpact.com. See you all soon.
Thank you, Paul.
And look at Cobello making himself at home.